To be honest, the deck profile I'm going to show you guys today makes me really bipolar. Hey you guys, and what's up? Welcome to the Prime Vanguard channel. It is I, Kosty, your host today, and today I'm going to be showing to you one of my favorite Aquaforce units in the entire game, Blue Wave Marshal Valeos. I just want to say that today's deck profile is going to be a fun and exciting one, but I'm just going to keep it completely real with you guys about some of the decisions and card choices I had to make for this deck because of just my personal testing experience and thoughts on it. So now without further ado, let's hop in to this deck profile. Alright you guys, let's go ahead and get started off with this deck profile. I'm going to go ahead and show you the main man of the show, 4 copies of Blue Wave Marshal Valeos. Now Blue Wave Marshal Valeos is one of the newest cards for Aquaforce introduced in Clan Selection Volume +2, and he's got a lot of text on him, so before I go ahead and explain this card thoroughly, we need to understand this card first. He has 3 Vanguard abilities and they read as follows. His first Vanguard ability states, act on the Vanguard circle, you may counterblast 1 and soul blast 1 once per turn. Choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and until the end of the turn, it gets minus 5,000 power. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, your opponent cannot increase or decrease the power of that said unit. Its second ability states, act on Vanguard circle. Once per turn, you may discard a card with the same card name as your Vanguard from your hand. Remove all markers from your side of the field and superior call up to 5 cards from your drop zone to rear guard circles. His third and final Vanguard ability states, Auto, on Vanguard circle, once per turn, at the end of the battle that one of your rear guard units attacked, you may exchange positions with that rear guard and another rear guard. So Valeos has 3 very strong Vanguard effects. All of them do something very different that affect your opponent, but they affect your offense, and they assist very well with one of Aquaforce's key issues that it's always had since the beginning of time, which was that one defensive trigger would screw you over. But because it's sticking true to its origin and locking your opponent's power down, but this time minusing their power instead of just freezing it at the beginning, that means that all of our attacks from grade 1 up to grade 2 and 3, they're all going to count for something. Meaning that if our opponent's already at high amount of damage, the first ability is very devastating, especially if we go second, and now they have to guard everything because all of your attacks are going to count. The second ability is one that is not as easy to do. The second ability is very powerful, as being able to discard a copy of yourself is not hard to do, as we have many cards in the deck that allow us to search for our pieces. So this ability isn't one that we'll be using too often, but when we do use it, it helps us set up our board and goes into our next effect. The at the end of battle and exchanging units effect at the end and his last ability is extremely powerful as well, as that means that we could potentially have up to 5 to 9 attacks in a turn. Depending on what units we play and units we have on board, we're going to be throwing a lot of attacks at our opponent that don't require any power-ups or triggers, meaning that our opponent's going to have to guard everything, especially if they go up to 5 damage or 4 damage and can't afford to take any more depending on what we pull. Now, everything I just said about this card was great. He's got 3 solid strong effects, and they all do something very well. Like I said, they do something, one that's negative for your opponent, and one that's positive for your offense, and one that's positive for your board, and one that sets up for a final turn. The only problem with all of that is that all of that went away when he was missing one thing. Now I'm gonna give y'all a second just to really look at this card before I state it out. Okay, all of that is cool and all, but what I really needed this card to have was an Excel marker. Now I was really surprised to see that this card didn't have an Excel marker, simply because I was thinking that they were going to move past the storyline and, you know, just make everything fair. But after I saw the release of this card for the very first time in Clan Selection Volume 2, I noticed right away that it didn't have an Excel marker, but I thought that all its other abilities were going to be so strong that not having that Excel marker wouldn't have mattered. Unfortunately, after doing a lot of playtesting and playing against other decks that are currently very good in the meta, I have to say that I was very wrong about that. Not having an Excel marker, especially in today's current metagame, is a very big deal, because Excel 1, that would have made one of your attacks extremely devastating. And If that was a restanding unit, that's a lot of cards in your opponent's hand because they can't rely on defensive triggers and their power goes down. And if it's frozen, that makes it even worse because now they have to rely on more cards than what the average amount of person would have to rely on if they could pull a defensive trigger. Excel 2, we're just Aquaforce and we just naturally have resource problems. So Excel 2 would have given us the extra attack and would have given us the 4 to 5 units that we need for other effects, as well as giving us mainly just that one additional card draw. We don't have any of that. Valeos is just sticking to its old theme and it's sticking to its old problems of just resource management and being able to draw cards, because as I go through the deck profile, guys, you're going to notice that I don't have too many cards that allow me to draw cards versus do searches, but the searches aren't guarantees, which means that sometimes we might not even plus from what we have. So not having that Excel marker was really hurtful for the deck, but it's not the end. Obviously it's not the end. Valeos has 3 strong effects, can do a lot of things, but not having a Excel marker was a really big hurt for the deck. Moving on to my next grade 3, I play 4 copies of Last Card Revan. Now, the way that I've been playing this deck lately is I've been using Valeos as more of a finisher or my second grade 3 ride. And what I mean by that is, or my second turn grade 3, because Valeos doesn't really shine without the freezing effect of his ability, which means that you need something that's going to be your first turn grade 3 ride. Lo and behold, we've got Last Card Revan. Last Card Revan can keep all of his effects. He gets the additional subtraction from your opponent, he gets the additional power and the +1 drive. You lose out on the critical if you don't have a grade 3 in Soul, but we don't care for that. This is mainly just our first grade 3 turn ride because we want the Excel marker and then we just want to throw a lot of damage to our opponent. So when we finally go into our Valeos turn, the turn afterwards, we can destroy our opponent with the Megiddo effect, as well as a lot of the attacks that we're going to have coming at our opponent. Because Valeos is going to get rid of the marker, so don't think that you're going to keep whatever Excel you choose for Revan, but Revan just helps us set up for our Valeos kill turn, and that's why I chose him as my first grade 3, as everything else was pretty bad and didn't really fit the theme of the deck, so Last Card Revan was my best option for the first grade 3 ride. Now I'm going to go to my grade 2s. I play 1 copy of Blue Wave Marine General Foivos. I only play 1 copy of Foivos because this card mainly just works with Revan, and this deck does Soul Blast quite a bit, and I have to be very selective of what my soul goes to, and sometimes I just don't want it to go to Foivos or need it to go there, so therefore I'm just choosing to play it at 1 so that when I do go into Revan and I do have this card, at least it does something. My next grade 2 is 4 copies of Blue Wave Marine General Galleas. Galleas, since the beginning of Valeos' release, has been the most amazing grade 2 for Blue Waves. His ability to get power when you have 4 more rested units is very easy to accomplish. Our deck has no problem making board whatsoever, even in this meta with Chaos Breaker Dragon running around. The ability to restand when your opponent's power is different is very easy to do, and it works very well on Revan, as you guys know, and it works well with Valeos. And it's a counterblast as well, so it doesn't take away from our soul, because in this variation of this deck, counterblasting is not an issue. We rarely counterblast. When we do, it only goes to Valeos or this card. So therefore, Galleas becoming our best restanding unit for multiple attacks is extremely helpful, and this puts on a lot of pressure to our... For my next grade 2, I play 4 copies of Blue Wave Marine General Galliat. Blue Wave Marine General Galliat is one of the newest grade 2s introduced to us in Clan Selection Volume +2, and he has 2 of the following effects. His first effect is on the Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, you may counterblast 1 and stand 1 of your rear guards with Blue Wave in its card name. Its second effect states, at the end of the battle that this unit attacked, if your opponent's Vanguard's power is different from its original power, you may Soul Blast 1 and choose 1 of your other rear guards in the same column as this unit and exchange positions with it. Now on Vanguard Circle, this card is just a cheaper Algos for us, specifically for Blue Wave, but most of our units are Blue Wave anyway, as that's pretty much the theme of this deck. And then the second effect to Soul Blast 1 exchange positions with this unit simply made this card a Basil, as we now can keep this card and save it for later and put whatever we have in the back row in the front, meaning that this card gives us an additional attack on the rear guard circle in a different way while keeping our grade 2s for our next turn. Therefore, meaning we'll always have at least something on the board even if our opponent gets rid of our front row, with via effects or with locking, as we're going to have this card to attack with later. And for my last grade 2, I play 4 copies of Coral Assault. Coral Assault is one of the best supporting grade 2 Aquaforce unit. Its ability to get 24,000 power on attack, depending on how many units you have in play, as well as the soul charge and draw, is very helpful, especially for this deck. As you guys have noticed, a few of our abilities do cost soul, and that was one of the issues of this deck, because you have to be selective of how much soul you want to use in a turn for your offense, and having Coral Assault to refund the cost is extremely helpful, and being able to draw cards to get some of our pieces is extremely helpful as well. Overall, this card is just a huge plus, and it's needed for this variation of the deck. For my grade 1s, I play 4 copies of Battle Siren Dolcia. Battle Siren Dolcia is one of the newest grade 1s introduced to us in Clan Selection Plus Volume 2, and it reads the following effect. Her first effect states, when placed, you may discard a card from your hand and draw a new card on the Vanguard circle. Her second ability states, on the Rearguard circle, if your opponent's Vanguard's current power is different from its original power, this unit may attack from the back row. As you've noticed, we have both Revan and we have both Valeos who affect our opponent's Vanguard's power, which means that this second ability is very easy and free to get off. And we want to maximize the number of attacks we can get on our opponent, because their power is going to be down only until the end of the turn, and Dolcia allows us to do that. Becoming a back row attacker means that we can place her in the back row and choose to use her boosting or attacking depending on our circumstances, but because their power is going to be fixed, she's going to be used for attacking 9 times out of 10. And if you're playing against an Excel deck, it's 7k, a Force deck is 8k, bonus effects from triggers will make her 18k, meaning that she's always going to be able to get over 10k guard from your opponent, demanding that they play 15k or more, and they're just wasting it on a grade 1 unit that doesn't even do much for our offense. This card, however, I will say is a flex slot. If you want to play the grade 1 that lets you draw a card, you can do that. You can take some of these out and play that. I have no problem with you doing that. You can play any other resource management card you believe is best for the deck. However, I think that Dolcia is best because in this deck we want to be as offensive as possible, and Dolcia being able to attack from the back row is pretty offensive to me. Therefore, that's why I'm playing her over everything else. Moving on to my next grade 1, I play 4 copies of Blue Wave Soldier Senior Corvette. Blue Wave Soldier Senior Corvette is another card introduced to us from Clan Selection Plus Volume 2, and he reads the following effect. His first ability states, on the rearguard circle, during your turn, if you have a Vanguard Blue Wave in its name, this unit gets plus 5,000 power. Its second ability states, when it attacks or the attack it boosted hits a Vanguard, you may look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add to 1 unit of Blue Wave in its name to your hand. Place the rest of the cards in the bottom of the deck in any order you wish. So Corvette is another searching card and power up card, as he becomes a 13k booster when you're on a Blue Wave Vanguard, which is very easy for us to do as most of our cards are Blue Wave and Valeos is our main Vanguard. The on hit search effect is something that is very important too, as since most of our cards are Blue Wave, we have a very high chance of adding something to our hand, and stacking on the bottom is helpful as we can get rid of all the cards we don't need and place them on the bottom. And we do have ways of shuffling our deck so that if we do get rid of any of our triggers or get rid of any of our good pieces, we can just shuffle those cards later with another card that I'm going to introduce for the deck. But Corvette is a solid support card, lets us add better cards and key pieces into our hand for our next defensive turns. I play 4 copies of Blue Wave Soldier Senior Beragios. Blue Wave Soldier Senior Beragios is the grade 3 searcher for Aquaforce. We really want to see our grade 3 on our first turn ride. This deck really can't handle any like wronggoings, so you don't want to G-assist, you don't want to have to do any of those type of plays because this deck is a bit of a glass cannon. So maxing out Beragios to make sure that we get one of our grade 3s is very helpful, and the fact that he has the Blue Wave name is good as well. The 5,000 power, like I said before, is very easy to reach. It just means that you have to choose on which card or attack pattern you want to have with this so that you actually get it, versus not being able to use it and just having an 8k attacking unit versus a 13k attacking unit. And for my trigger lineup for the deck, I play 2 copies of Battleship Intelligence, 4 copies of Supersonic Sailor, so 6 criticals. I play 2 copies of Pyroxene Communication Sea Otter Soldier, and 4 copies of Emerald Shield Pascal, 4 copies of Medical Officer of the Rainbow Elixir. Alright you guys, so we're at that point in the video where I would normally talk about the marker I believe is best for the deck. However, because this is Valeos and Valeos doesn't have markers, we will not be doing that phase of the video today. Even though we have Revan is strictly going to go XL2. You need the +1 card draw, and that's the only marker you can go into for the deck, as Valeos is going to get rid of all the markers you put on with Revan, even if you rewrite Revan multiple times, because they want to keep him fair. Alright you guys, so that is all for today's deck profile. Thank you so much for watching and sticking with me throughout the length of this video. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. It does help the channel. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell. I have a lot more deck profiles and discussions coming out for the channel very soon. And if your friend is thinking about building a Blue Wave Marshal Valeos deck, go ahead and share this video with them. You can use my deck as a template, as all of my decks are, and go from there. But that's all for today's video, guys. So, peace.